Welcome to Narrated PowerPoint 2, the audio supplement to your second meeting. Once again, as the person who is leading this change, before the meeting you'll need to view this webinar and review the information on Meeting 2 in the guide. After you have reviewed all of the information in both, you'll need to make several decisions. Your first decision is if you want to go forward with all of this information in one meeting, or do you want to take it more slowly? And then you'll need to decide if you'd like to share some portions of this narrated PowerPoint with your team members either prior to or during the meeting. In preparation for the second meeting, create an agenda based on the action items for Meeting 2. You'll need to bring both the roster of your CNAs and nurses to the meeting and a floor plan of your building. Again, we've given you a sample agenda. Feel free to modify it as you need to. Your agenda for the second meeting includes checking in on the assignments from Meeting 1. Be sure to give this the time it needs. Don't rush it. The information that people share will guide your process. The next part are your action items that you'll be accomplishing in this meeting. These action items include Step 3, assigning your staff to preferred work areas, deciding whether to pilot or go whole house, Step 5, transforming from staff-centered to a resident-centered schedule. Step 6, tweaking staff composition to have the right mix of full-time and part-time. Make the math work for consistency. Step 7, make a plan to cover for unscheduled absences, initiating action to reduce these unscheduled absences. Step 8, make a plan to convene meetings within each work area to rate residents to develop a fair assignment. We know that all of this is a really ambitious agenda. You know your building best. Carefully review the action items and the time involved. Consider everything else you have going on at this time and how it's going to affect your staff. You may want to consider breaking this out into more than one meeting and or having subcommittees to work on any particular area. We'll walk you through these action items. In checking in on the assignments, the first thing on your agenda, you're going to want to first check in with the team members who helped in staff education. You're going to ask some questions of them, and these are some of the questions you may think to ask. How did the meetings with staff go? How was the pair drinking? Discuss how was the discussion of why consistent assignment? What questions did they have? How did they respond? This should give you a better feel for how your staff reacted to all of this information. And these are good questions that really get to the meat of the matter. Check in with the team members who reviewed the data on staff who were being asked to move. Part of what affects consistency is the tendency to move people around to cover unexpected absences. This data is your baseline. As your team continues to meet over time, you'll want to see if this improves. You should see significant improvement. Also check in with the team member who reviewed the data on what your current consistency is. These two pieces of information will give everyone a sense of how much consistency you have and don't have. Talk through the findings, and once this discussion is complete, move on to goal setting. The team should set a goal for what you'd like it to be. Advancing excellence is set 9 to 12 as an optimal goal, but every building is different. For your building, consider what is really realistic for all shifts, and if you have any special needs. As we mentioned earlier, this project is a perfect QAPI project. This data is your baseline. In QAPI, you need both data and you need goals. If consistent assignment is working well, residents should have between 10 and 12 staff people caring for them. Your goal is that no consistently assigned staff member is moved from their assignment. As a committee, as you go forward, monitor your progress towards these goals by continually collecting data. Your next decision concerns how you will move forward. Factors to consider include how far along in consistency are you already? What is the size of your building? How much capacity do you have to take on change? Strength of nursing leadership at the unit or neighborhood level. The time availability of the management team to lead the effort. Is it easier to change everything at once or to start small but have two systems? Will staff be persuaded by seeing it work well in one area? benefits of learning on a small scale versus the benefits of having the whole building going in the same direction at once. You need to have a discussion with your team about whether or not to pilot or to go whole house. There are some factors to consider in your deliberation. Piloting will contain the change so that you can stay on top of it easier and learn as you go. Whole house means that you will not be operating two systems at once. Both have merit. You and your team need to talk through this and then decide. If you pilot, you'll want to decide where you want to pilot it. You want to choose the area that has the best chance for success, where you have your most capable nurses and CNAs, where you have the best teams, where people routinely problem solve together, and where you have the fewest vacancies and absences. Also consider which unit may be easiest because it has the fewest changes in census, and consider whether or not this is a unit where residents will benefit the most. You may want to consider doing this in your memory care unit. Your next task at this meeting is to group staff into work areas. Based on your staff's preferences, assign staff to work in one unit or neighborhood. If you're piloting, you can do this in stages. First do it for the pilot area, then complete assignments unit by unit as you establish consistent assignments. Your building may already be broken into distinct areas of care. This makes this step a lot easier. But if your building makes no distinctions between care needs, then your next step will be to break out areas that make sense geographically. This is where your building floor plan will be very helpful. Look at the floor plan and look for natural break points such as hallways, units, or other areas where there's a natural divide. Your goal is to break your building into smaller areas. These smaller areas will become your smaller homes within your home. You're designing the caregiving areas that your assignments will be grouped into. After this discussion, your team will need to look at what staff have shared as to their work area preferences. You're going to want to honor their request as much as possible. This may be easier for some of you than for others. Start by looking at your full-time people and honor their preferences as much as possible. What you are aiming for is a resident-centered schedule. Putting together a resident-centered schedule is different from a staff-centered schedule. A staff-centered schedule is one that looks to make sure that staff get their hours. A resident-centered schedule looks to make sure that residents get the same caregivers caring for them as much as possible. Develop a schedule so that each resident assignment is consistently staffed by a primary staff person and a consistent backup. A resident-centered schedule really is a math exercise.
Here's one example of a resident-centered schedule. The schedule is built around resident assignments with consistent staff and consistent backups. Here, 3 CNAs share 2 assignments. Every CNA works for 4 days and then has 2 days off. Maria has assignment 1, and on her days off, Ellie is her backup. Jen has assignment number 2, and on her days off, Ellie is her backup. Some buildings modify this so staff have every 3rd weekend fully off. Here's another approach that also has a schedule built around resident assignments with a primary staff person and a consistent backup. So let's do the math. For 8-hour shifts times 7 days gives you 56 hours. Those 56 hours can be shared by 2 CNAs, one working 32 hours, one working 24 hours, which each one covering alternating weekends. In this home, 32 hours is a full-time position with benefits. The home hires into 32-hour and 24-hour positions by assignment. CNAs who share a group of residents can switch days if they need to. The CNAs who want to pick up extra hours become the backup pool for coworkers working on the same neighborhood as they are. These are 2 examples of how to make the math work for making a schedule centered around resident assignments with consistent staff and consistent backup. As you're doing the math and designing your schedule, take a look at your staff composition. Do you have the right mix of full and part-time staff to staff each resident assignment? If not, your management team will need to make some adjustments. Can you combine several part-timers' hours into a full-time positions? Seek to convert your best part-time and per diem staff into full-time staff. Think about which of your part-time staff best meet 3 criteria. Number 1, they're reliable and dependable. Number 2, they have good people skills. They're warm and friendly. They pitch in. They work well with others. And number 3, they have good caregiving skills. Staff who have all 3 of these are what our friend David Farrell calls Triple Crown winners. They're dependable, they're friendly, and they've got good caregiving skills. Those of your staff who are your Triple Crown winners, go to them personally and tell them how much you value them. Ask them to consider becoming full-time members of your staff and taking on a consistent assignment. Optimally, you want to have at least 75% of your staff as full-time employees. And for most of the rest of the staff, those who work part-time, you want guaranteed hours so you can build a resident-centered schedule with consistent staff. Many homes that go through this step find that their staffing budget and schedule becomes more efficient and easier to set. The key point is to have the composition that allows you to schedule for maximum consistency. This may be something to do as a subcommittee. Figure out who will be responsible for this step and for talking with your Triple Crown part-timers. This next step is crucial, and it's an area that many nursing homes struggle with. On the one hand, we say we want consistent assignment, and then on the other hand, we move staff when there's an unscheduled absence. As long as we disrupt consistency to cover an absence, we undermine it. Instead of moving consistently assigned CNAs, plan how to cover an unscheduled absence. Here's a way to think about it. Huddle with the staff to determine their needs for the day. Divide up the assignment of the absent person among coworkers. Talk with the team about how to cover all the residents' needs. Find out when the most help is needed. And have the management team provide all hands on deck at heavy labor times. Ask other staff to go the extra mile to help. Can the dietary staff help with some parts of the meal service? Can housekeeping answer call lights while CNAs are helping with meal assistance? See if a consistent backup from that neighborhood can come in even for a partial shift. Pulling a CNA from their assignment to cover someone else's absence should be the last resort, not the first. This is a time to walk the talk. If you believe in consistent assignment, support it even when it's hard. When you support consistency at these times by stepping up and helping out, you confirm your commitment and you model the way for all the staff to do the same. And while it might seem like this is a lot of extra work, think about the work that's involved when you have a CNA who doesn't know a resident, and the results might be care issues that you then have to spend the time fixing. This is preventive because it supports consistent assignment, even in difficult times. Talk this through at your meeting. Discuss how you want to handle unscheduled absences. Make a plan, and then be prepared to share it with the staff. In addition to pitching in when there's an unscheduled absence, work on minimizing unscheduled absences. First, allow staff who share an assignment to trade off to cover for each other within guidelines. The person scheduled to work must be the one responsible for notifying the scheduler and the supervisor about who is taking their shift and what the traded schedule is. And of course, no overtime without approval. Homes that fully implement and support consistent assignment find that unscheduled absences decline when staff are consistently assigned and their knowledge about residents is valued. As they know they are valued and their presence matters, staff are more conscientious about attendance. They want to make sure their residents are well cared for. Consistent assignment reinforces staff's sense of responsibility and accountability. Allowing staff to trade off when life concerns intervene honors their sense of responsibility. Formalize your policy on this and let the staff know about it. Talk this through at your meeting and figure out how you want to go forward.
Unscheduled absences can really be a problem when you're trying to have consistency. Some homes have more of a problem with this than others. It's really important to take action if you're seeing a lot of unscheduled absences. We all know that today's call-off is tomorrow's termination. Unscheduled absences put a strain on everyone. To tackle this, you first need to know what you're dealing with. Do this by tracking your absences. One director of nurses tracked her absences publicly by putting a whiteboard in her office. Every month she titled the board call-offs, and then she put the month's name, and then listed every call-off for the month, including nurse leadership. This DON also always had candy in her office, so staff were in and out frequently. By putting up the board, she not only tracked her absences, but everyone knew she was tracking, and her unscheduled absences decreased. Once you know what you're dealing with, take steps to reduce absences. These include enforcing your attendance policies. Your reliable staff really count on you to enforce worker accountability. You want to provide support and flexibility to staff whose personal lives create attendance challenges and where you can support staff and be flexible. You also want to ask staff to give you as much notice as possible when they can't come in. People who have hard lives and who want to be good employees will appreciate your help, and you'll gain their loyalty. Be proactive in anticipating absences. If someone calls off, call them to find out if they expect to be in on their next scheduled day. If someone is asked to work a double or to take a last-minute assignment, find a replacement for their next scheduled shift so that they can have the rest that they need. Have consistent backups for each unit, for each shift. Reward individuals and teams for good attendance.
Now that you've made key decisions about staffing and set the framework for your schedule, it's time to take this discussion back out to the staff. In Step 8, members of your committee will meet with the staff to figure out which residents go into which assignments so that each assignment is fair. Since you introduced consistent assignment with paired drinking and asking all staff what their preference was for where to work, now you want to bring them up to date on what you found. If you are piloting, meet with the staff in the pilot area. If you're going whole house, have meetings on each neighborhood. When you meet with the staff, show the data on how many caregivers are currently caring for residents and what your goal is. Remind them of their experience with paired drinking and how important it is to residents to know and trust in the people giving them intimate care. Show data on how many CNAs are moved off their assignment to cover unscheduled absences, and discuss your plan for providing coverage without moving people and how you want to reduce unscheduled absences. Explain that they are gathered to engage in a process to ensure a fair distribution of work. As you huddle with staff, have department heads or other nurses cover residents' needs so staff can meet uninterrupted. Have a whiteboard or a flip chart. List all the residents' names. Discuss each resident, evaluating physical and non-physical needs. This process of talking through the care needs of each resident is crucial for several reasons. Staff will have confidence in the process and the assignments when they are part of making them, and they'll understand the rationale behind them. This process draws on staff's critical thinking skills. When staff work together and discuss residents together, they develop the analytical skills for noticing how residents are and also when residents' needs change. It starts by having the staff analyze residents during this initial stage. Be transparent about that. Tell staff this is the beginning of their ongoing attentiveness to residents' needs and condition, and to the teamwork and collective problem solving that will help them meet these needs. Provide a numerical rating for each resident. Use a chart to capture these numerical ratings.
With the staff, weigh both the physical and non-physical aspects of care on a scale of 1 to 3 or 1 to 5, with 1 being the easiest. In making the assignment, staff may not have the same number of people, but will have the same total level of difficulty. For example, one staff person may have 2 residents who are especially hard to care for, and so may have fewer people to care for. Consider even having paired team assignments in which 2 CNAs work together with a group of residents with heavy care needs. As the leader, you'll take on assignment 6. Using the information that people have given to you from the staff rating the residents and the work preference areas, put together a draft master assignment schedule on paper. Share it with your staff and make any adjustments necessary. Look at the draft schedule and the floor plan and think through the assignments. Do they make sense in terms of location? Remember that this is a draft and will most likely change based on valuable input from your staff. Keep in mind that high engagement comes from high involvement. The more that you involve your staff in figuring out these assignments, the more they will own the process and the end result.
In meeting to finalize assignments, talk about all the ways you plan to support consistency. Express your commitment to consistent assignments so you will no longer be moving people to cover an absence. Explain your plan when there is an unscheduled absence, that the management and other staff will pitch in to minimize disruption to residents. Get their ideas on how it can work best. Bring them into the thinking on this. By doing so, you reinforce your commitment to consistent assignment, and you help all staff step up in their accountability and their attendance. Explain your plan for minimizing unscheduled absences. Discuss how staff can trade off days. Discuss how you'll be enforcing the attendance policy and the rewards that you plan to offer for good attendance. After all of this, you want to set a date to implement consistent assignment and just do it. But then you want to continue to meet with the staff during that first crucial week of implementation. Meet daily with staff in a quick huddle to check in on how assignments are going and see if any tweaks are needed. Again, this serves two purposes. You're making sure it's working and you're making adjustments so it is, and you're building your staff's critical thinking and collaborative problem solving, which is all part of sustainment.
We know that there are a lot of tasks to take from this meeting. Decide who will do what and realistically how much time you need between now and the next meeting to accomplish all of this. See the grid and make your assignments. Set a meeting date for your next meeting for sharing the results of their assignments and taking the work forward. This is the end of Webinar 2.